This is part 52 of ASP.NET MVC tutorial. In this video, we'll discuss partial views. If you're an ASP.NET Web Forms developer, then you'll realize that partial views in MVC are very similar to user controls in ASP.NET Web Forms. Partial views are used to encapsulate reusable view logic and are a great means to simplify the complexity of views. These partial views can then be used on multiple views where we need similar kind of view logic. The file extension for partial view depends on two things: the view engine that we are using and the programming language. For example, if you're using Razor View Engine and the programming language is C#, then the file extension for the partial view is going to be .cshtml. If your programming language is Visual Basic, then it's going to be .vbhtml. On the other hand, if your view engine is ASPX, then the programming language is not going to have any influence on the file extension of the partial view. It's going to be .ascx. Let's understand these partial views with an example. Let's say we want to display employees' photo and their age, gender, salary, as you can see here, and we want to display the employees' data in this fashion on several views. There are two ways we can achieve that. One, repeat this HTML and C# code on each and every view where you want a similar kind of an output. But this has got a disadvantage. Tomorrow, if we want to update this view such that we also want to display date of birth, then you will have to update all those views. Okay. The other way is to actually encapsulate this HTML and code into a partial view and then use that partial view on all the views where you want this kind of an output. And this has got two advantages. One, using partial views make the views themselves simpler to understand because they reduce the complexity. The amount of code will be reduced within the view itself, so they will be simpler to understand. And number two, maintainability will be much easier. Tomorrow you update that one partial view, and then all of the views wherever we are using that partial view will be automatically updated. So maintainability will also be much easier. First of all, let's create an index view that's going to list employees in this fashion, and then we'll see how to encapsulate the view logic of displaying that one employee into a partial view, and then we'll see how to use that partial view on the index view. Okay, so we'll be using this table TBL employee for this demo, and then within the view we want to display employee's photo, age, gender, and salary. So we have got those columns there, so age, gender, and salary, and then the photo path of the employee. And notice that the photos of employee are going to be in the photos folder, and that photos folder is going to be within the root directory. The tilde symbol here indicates the root directory of our web application project. So within the root directory we're going to have photos directory, and within that we are going to have photos of employees. Now I have these photos here, so let's copy them, and then within our project there is a photos folder, and that's present within the root directory of our project. So let's go ahead and paste the photos into that folder. So that's the first step, and the next step is to actually add the index view itself. So the name of the view is going to be index. We don't need a parameter for the index view. Let's go ahead and create an instance of our sample DB context class, which will help us connect to the database, and then return a view, and to the view let's pass the list of employees. Alright, the next step is to add the index view itself. So the name of the view is going to be index. We're going to make use of Razor View Engine. We're going to create a strongly typed view, and the scaffold template is going to be list. Let's add that. So this should add index.cshtml. So we have the index view there. I'm going to get rid of all this HTML which is auto-generated for us. Now the important thing to notice here is that the model for this view is going to be IEnumerable of employees. That is the list of employees. Okay. And then what I want to do is I want the HTML which is going to produce this output. So I'm going to have a table, and within that I'm going to have two TDs. One TD to display the image of the employee, and another TD to display these three fields and their values. That's age, gender, and salary. So it should be pretty straightforward HTML. So let me copy that, and then paste that there. Now this is going to display one employee details, but then we need to loop through each employee, because look at this, the model for this view is actually IEnumerable of employee, meaning we'll get a list of employees. So I'm going to use a for each loop here. So the model for this view, is list of employees. So we are going to loop through each employee in that model. So let's close that bracket right here. Okay, so we are going to pass each employee object into this HTML. So this HTML will be repeated for each employee in that model. And within the HTML itself, it's very straightforward. We have a table tag, and if you look at that, we have a style tag there. We have set font family to Arial. We have set border 1 pixel solid black border, and the width of that table is going to be 300 pixels. And notice that I have one TR, and within that one TR I have two TDs. One TD is right here, and look at this TD. What is it doing? It is retrieving the photo. Okay, and then we are using url.content HTML helper to resolve that path for us, and then we are setting the alternate text as well for that image. In the previous sessions we have discussed about displaying images in an MVC application. It's the same code here. We are using the image tag, setting the source and all the attributes. So that's the first TD. So within the first TD we are displaying the image, and then within the second TD I have got another table. Okay, so basically a table for displaying age, gender and salary, and within that I have 3 rows. Okay, so one row for each column value, age, gender and salary, 3 rows, and within each row I'm going to have 2 TDs. So here we have 2 TDs. First TD is going to contain the label, which is age, and then the second TD is going to contain the value. Okay, so the same logic here as well for gender and salary. Pretty simple and straightforward HTML and C# code here. Okay, but then notice this view. It's a little complicated here, because we have this for each loop there, and we have this HTML, and it's a bit messy here. Now it's possible we can encapsulate this entire HTML into a partial view, and then we can use that partial view. We'll do that in a bit, but for now let's build the solution. Control-Shift-B is the keyboard shortcut. So on the status bar you can notice that it says build succeeded. Now let's go ahead and navigate to the index view. So that should render the output as you can see here. So we have the output. Okay, now let's say how to encapsulate this HTML into its own partial view. And partial views can reside either in the shared folder or in a specific views folder. If we add a partial view to a shared folder, then obviously that will be available for all the views in the entire application. On the other hand, if we add it to a specific folder, then it's going to be available only for the views within that folder. Let's actually add it to the shared folder. So I'm going to add a view, and the name of the view is going to be _employee, and we're going to make use of Razor View Engine. We're going to create a strongly typed view, and the scaffold template is going to be empty. We're going to create a partial view. I'm going to add that. So that should add _employee.cshtml. Notice that we are using C# programming language, and the view engine is Razor, so the extension for the view is .cshtml. Now notice that the model for this view is one employee object. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is we're going to cut this HTML. I'm going to take that entire table from there and put that within our employee.cshtml partial view. And notice that we have some errors here. It's saying the item does not exist, and it makes sense because we haven't declared item. Since we copied this HTML from index.cshtml view, we have that error there. So what we need to do is, the model for this view is the employee object. So the photo property, alternate text property is going to come from that model object. So all we need to do here is use model instead of item. So let's replace that. Okay, so this is our partial view now. Now we want to use this partial view within our index.cs HTML. Okay, and to use a partial view or render a partial view, then there is an HTML helper called partial. Okay, and notice that there are several overloaded versions of this HTML helper, but we are going to use this overloaded version, which takes two parameters, that is the name of the partial view and the model object. Okay, so the name is underscore employee, that's the name of the partial view, and the model object for this partial view is employee object. So let's pass that, and item is nothing but the employee object, because that's going to come from your model. That's it. Let's build the solution. So notice that in the status bar, build succeeded. Let's refresh this view. We should have the same output, except that now we're using a partial view. Okay, and instead of using partial extension method, there's another extension method that we can use, render partial. Okay, you might be wondering, why do we have two methods to do the same thing? In our next video, we'll discuss the difference between partial and render partial HTML helper methods. On this slide, you can find resources for ASP.NET, C# and SQL Server interview questions. That's it for today. Thank you for listening. Have a great day.